The effect video game violence can have on development has been a hotly debated topic probably ever since the Columbine shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, were found to have been avid players of a first-person shooter-style video game called Doom. This spurred a large amount of developmental research. Those who have studied the effects of long-term exposure to games and other media glorifying gun violence, such as a Princeton-based publication, The Future of Children, have found that children exposed to gun violence may experience negative short and long-term psychological effects, including anger, withdrawal, post-traumatic stress, and desensitization to violence. All these outcomes can feed into a continuing cycle of violence. They go on to concede that some children may be at a higher risk than others, depending on the child's environment. However, while it may be possible to mitigate these effects in even the majority of children, those who are susceptible may pose a risk to society and themselves, such as the Columbine shooters did. Is it really wise to allow our entertainment to contain materials that can cause the deaths of innocent Americans? This is why video games glorifying gun violence should be banned. There are plenty of games that do not do this and are popular with children and youth. With our constant exposure to violence in the news and other forms of media, do we really need to stack video games on top of everything else? Each year, more than 20,000 children and youth under age 20 are killed or injured by firearms in the United States. Thousands of young people are shot by peers, family members, or strangers, either intentionally or unintentionally. Thousands more use guns to attempt suicide, and these attempts prove more successful than other types of suicide attempts. Now, at first when I read this, I thought to myself, well, I'm sure video games didn't cause all these deaths. Of course not. But the long-term effects of games glorifying gun violence, including desensitization to violence, is it really a big jump to say a significant portion of them were? Regardless of those statistics, banning these games would be a relatively small step that could potentially save many lives. Ann Hornaday recently wrote in the Washington Post about a shift in film preference. People are trending away from gun violence in movies, with only a few exceptions. If this is true, the same trend is likely to follow into video games, making a ban on violent video games not only timely, but coinciding with social preference. A friend of mine considered the fact that in film and other media, you act as a passive viewer. I believe this contributes more to desensitization to violence rather than any other psychological impacts. However, when you consider video games glorifying gun violence, you are actively participating, pretending to shoot and kill people. This, while also desensitizing you to violence, may lead to violent tendencies in some people, perhaps those with a predisposition. The ESRB rates video games, and those over 17 can buy any game they please, regardless of content. Is it really wise to sell teenagers who are still so easily influenced a game where they repeatedly blow someone's head off? And besides, most kids can get any game they choose, perhaps if they have an older sibling or even a parent buy it for them. So raising the age on mature games would not be a viable solution to content. The only solution that limits exposure to such violent media is effectively a full ban on games glorifying gun violence.